It is June 7th, 2020, and this is day 10. It's a Sunday, so nothing much happened except for a few comments from government officials. The first one was that one of the officials said the civil servant of Hong Kong should also be the civil servant of China. If the one country, two systems still stands, and this would be a problem, as in Hong Kong's government service and government structures does not apply nor integrated into China's governmental structure. So if Hong Kong's civil servants are also China's civil servants, then that means that Hong Kong's government are also part of China's government, in which it should not be true under one country, two systems, because if Hong Kong's government is integrated into Chinese government, then the Chinese government has whatever measures to affect Hong Kong's government decisions, which does not count as autonomous, but, well, we all know that one country, two system is just a joke, and they just simply ignores it. America has confirmed it's one country, one system now, so whatever. The second bit of news is from Regina Yip, which is a very famous politician in Hong Kong, one of the Legislative Council members, and her career as a civil servant dates back into the colonial days of Hong Kong. However, she said that for the cases that are related to national security, once national security law is passed, the cases should not allow grand jury to be present, because she thinks that under current situations, a grand jury are not appropriate to be handling such cases, which means that for whatever reasons that she thinks when someone commits a crime according to the national security law, the judge's opinions are the final saying of the case and the final deciding factor of the case, except for consulting the citizens' opinion, which means that since they probably know most of the people are against the national security law, then having a grand jury means that every time trials is held, people are gonna say those who committed the crime of threatening national security will be innocent, which goes to prove that this law has no grounding and are not welcomed by the people, and it's basically useless except for political oppressions. And speaking of oppressions, a third bit of news was coming from the Hong Kong government itself, which that the spokesman of the Hong Kong government said that a public voting has no ground in the law and does not have legal does not have does not require legal actions or does not have a legal binding effects to it. So a public voting of voting Carrie Lam out, or a public voting of are the Hong Kong people for or against national security law, or should the national security law be implemented in Hong Kong, has, according to the Hong Kong government spokesman, that such votings has no effect on the actual legislations in Hong Kong. And the spokesman also said that creating such votings, including and other political participations such as strikes, not going to classes, not going to work, and not buying stuff, not purchasing stuff from a certain group of merchants, which we deem them as the blues or the reds, which are mostly pro-government or pro-China or even backed by China or even Chinese corporates. Such actions leading up to a public voting are people manipulating students to achieve a political agenda, and they stated, the government stated, that whoever uses such methods will not get what they want. This means that, to me, when the government deems some political participations or political agendas are against the government, they directly rejected the notion of such agenda, and they will simply say, people, you are being manipulated, students are innocent, they don't know anything, youngsters are innocent, the society are innocent, they are manipulated by a small group of people with a strong political agenda. I mean, this is what a demonstration is about. There is a political agenda. People agree to the political agenda, so they are acting out such agenda to cause an effect, to let the government know that they are asking for something. It means to me that the government doesn't give a shit. It doesn't care about its people. It doesn't care about the cause of the rebellion. It doesn't care about the cause of the protest. As long as there's protest, it's the people's fault instead of the government. They might be acting on China's behalf, so they have to be so strong against the people's will, as the people's will are against China's view, which right now, before it would just withdraw the extradition bill, and China sees that as diminishing China's power internationally and within Hong Kong, so they amped up the forces, which changes the public's demand from withdrawing the bill to Hong Kong independence. That escalated quickly. So I have no idea why the government are still acting so strong, so strongly against people's voices and people's view, and not not even showing any signs of agreeing or signs of sincerity to listen to the people, to let the people's emotion to drop, to create a middle ground for people can discuss. For as to me, the divide between the yellow camp and the blue camp, the pro government and the against government camp, this large divide in the society was created solely based on the government decisions. It could have been easily avoided if the government aren't acting so strong. Remember during the June 9th events, when there's 1 million people marched, it was because of the government response that made 1 million more people came out. And it was after the 2 million people march that the government still refused to listen to the people and to show any sign of backing down or not pushing it so strongly that forced the people to go on the streets to protect themselves with riot gears, to create a lot of scrimmage and ultimately leads to storming in the Legislative Council on July 1st. And since July 1st, when police are using excessive forces, they're firing double the amount of tear gas canisters and pepper sprays used it during the entire period of Occupy Central in 2014 in one day or in 2 days. That costed so many injuries and so many casualties and events afterwards that rallied people into the against government camp, to the people from being in the middle who thinks that the government is wrong or the extradition bill wasn't such a big deal, but when they sees the police brutality, when they sees the government's attitude, and when they sees the photos of those who are injured, they turned into the against government camp. And some of them, when they sees the actions of the protesters, when they are throwing Molotovs, when they are throwing bricks back to the police, because the police are firing rounds and rounds of tear gas to force them into a corner, and they have to break out and they have to break through, and they can't just be defending themselves when it's a demonstrations. There's also people who turned into the pro-government camp because of their anti-violence, with air quotes, because completely blindsided by police using double the amount of forces, but that's another story. It's because of the government actions that ultimately leads to the excessive forces used by the police that created the greater divide, not on a political issue but on a humanity issues. When it's a political issues, there are three camps: people who are actively against the extradition bill, people who thinks the extradition bill was no big deal, and people who support the extradition bill because they think if the bill was not passed, then Hong Kong will become a city of criminals, which, again, 22 years, 21 years has passed, and Hong Kong is still Hong Kong. Why do they think if the extradition bill was not passed, that Hong Kong would suddenly become a city of criminals? Anyways, the point is, there's three camps. There's those who are in the middle, who are more mild, and there's two very aggressive camps. But after the incidences happened in the first 2 months of the protest, the middle ground basically disappeared. Those who hate the government hates it more. Those who think the government treated people badly hates the government. Those who think the government did nothing wrong supports the government more. And those who think that the protesters are not being peaceful anymore, so hence the protest is invalid, became those who support the government or even support the police brutalities. The middle ground, what was left in the so-called middle ground, was the people who don't care a lot about the news and things happening around them, but they are not condemning either side, which in either side will see them as the opposite camp. If the government has a little bit more wisdom while handling the pressure from China and also dealing with the internal struggles and internal conflicts of Hong Kong, things could have been different. But to this day, the Hong Kong government are still using the same attitude when they are treating the extradition bill. They are still pushing it, ignoring the public voices and opinions, using various methods to force people not to come out. And with more oppressions, people are just gonna fight back even harder. Or to a point when people can't fight anymore, they will find ways to leave the place, which the people are the ones who made up a country instead of the land it occupies. The land itself has no value. It was people who has value. So when the Chinese government are so strongly against the idea of the UK giving BNOs holders the right to reside in the UK and having residency eventually became British citizens, it's understandable that they don't want this to happen, because what makes Hong Kong valuable was A, system, the different system, B, the geographic location which being bordered to China, and C are the people who are executing the system and upholding the Chinese values, which makes, with the colonial culture, which makes doing business easier as a mediator between China and the foreign world. The system was gone. We have seen it for over an year now. The system are completely flawed. It was destroyed. It was not trustworthy anymore. Geographically, we can't move Hong Kong away. So it still borders China. But when the people who are smart enough to deal with the Chinese people also to deal with foreigners, and the people who runs the system, who are the lawyers who uphold the law, who makes the law, who makes the policies, those who works in the financial field that makes Hong Kong Stock Exchange, this Hong Kong Stock Exchange the world famous stock exchange, and the people in general who works in Hong Kong to build up the society which fosters such great business environment. When these people are gone, the geographic location matters much and much less. So what they are doing right now are wanting people to listen, but also trapping the talents in Hong Kong. No one knows will other countries internationally really be carrying out the lifeboat schemes to help people from Hong Kong to leave the country. But at least when there are still options to leave the place, if the government are still acting so strongly, not backing down, and keep on destroying the system it built over the past 20 years, people will eventually leave the place. People who are capable, people who are renowned, people who are established will eventually leave the place. And when that happened, Hong Kong is Hong Kong no more. The place will still be named Hong Kong, but the value of Hong Kong will be completely gone. What left in Hong Kong, to China at least, will be the reserved. It was left behind, but it will never create once again.